Okay, today we're going to start with our introduction here to ancient Greece. For the most part, today it's going to be a relatively short lecture. We're not going to go through this whole PowerPoint here and kind of break it up into bits and pieces for all of you. But the main thing I want to focus on today is the geography of ancient Greece, or not ancient Greece, but is Greece itself. Just like we've done with all of our other units so far, with Mesopotamia, Egypt, we talked obviously when we did our China unit before spring break. We talked about geography and the role that it played in the lifestyles that the people had, and obviously their government and their economy as well. So that's what we're mainly going to get into here today. So let me go ahead and let's start this PowerPoint up. Okay. So what I want you to kind of think of, you can kind of pause the video too, because I'm going to keep it rolling here. But what do you think of when I say Greece, or when we talk about Greece? What comes to mind right away? And throughout this unit, you'll kind of be surprised with how much Greece actually does, share, or how much we share in common with Greece, and whether it be our government, whether it be through mythology, which we'll do a lot on later on this week. But yeah, we actually end up sharing quite a bit with Greece's culture. So let's kind of get into it here. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So it looks like it's cut off there. There, that should be good. Okay. So after the River Valley era, and again, when we're talking about the River Valley era, we were mainly looking at, with Mesopotamia, you had the Tigris and Euphrates. We talked about in Egypt, you had the Nile River. Rome, you had the Tiber River as well as the Mediterranean Sea here. Here's where Greece is located. So we're going to see a number of classical civilizations develop not only in Asia, but then also in the Mediterranean, which will be, where's my mouse? Right here, this area. Okay, in a classic culture, which you can see right here at the bottom, is any type of culture that creates high levels of achievement in art, science, technology that will impact future ages. And the reason why these cultures are able to do so is if we kind of take it back here a little bit. Prior to these cultures, whether it be Greece and Rome that we're going to talk about, a lot of them had to constantly worry about food and protection. But because of Greece and Rome being located along the Mediterranean here, it's perfect for trade routes, uh, allowing them to become these wealthy trading nations, and therefore you're able to concentrate on other subjects, whether be the art, sciences, and different technologies, and so forth. So the first major classical civilization will be ancient Greece. Okay, we'll get to Rome later on this year, uh, closer towards the end of April, early May. But the first major classical civilization will be ancient Greece. Now, if we take a look here, okay, again, here is Greece where my mouse is at right here. If you look at the geographic feature that should pop out, obviously you have the bodies of water. Okay, you got the Mediterranean Sea, the Ionian, the Aegean, the Sea of Crete. Um, Again, allowing Greece to become this wealthy trading nation by being able to connect it with the Mediterranean Sea and trade with different peoples, whether it be in Northern Africa, connecting them to Asia as well, or even other European nations too. Now, another thing that obviously jumps out looking at this is Greece is actually covered in 75 or close to 75% mountains, okay, which is going to play a massive role in the lifestyles that the people have. Because of their lack of technology back then, a lot of places are actually kind of isolated, and each different, what they call a city state inside these mountain valleys here, will be act like their own government. They'll have their own military, their own customs, so on and so forth. But even though this is all of Greece, you're going to see almost like mini countries are going to develop inside of Greece. Okay, so because they're covered in 75% mountains, or roughly 75%, they obviously do not have a lot of natural resources. Not to say they don't have any, but they are lacking compared to other countries. So this will encourage Greece to go out, I mean, really, they have no choice, go out and trade with neighboring societies. Okay, you can kind of see some examples here, trading here with Italy, over in Asia, Northern Africa, okay, blah, blah, blah. If you take a look, let me adjust the screen here. You got exports of Greece, okay, pottery, wine, olive oil, still major exports today for Greece. Then imports, import a lot of metals, stones, and then obviously grain too for the people to eat. Okay, like I said earlier, their mountains cover about 75% of Greece, which again, oops, I was going to divide the people and make unifying the entire country of Greece nearly impossible. And we'll get to later on how Greece is able to unify, and it's usually by the same common threat, and that'd be the Persian Empire. But again, that won't be till later on. So at this point in our lecture, Greece is pretty much divided amongst their people. Now, they developed independent city states, like I mentioned earlier. They were called a polis within each valley and its surrounding mountains. Okay, so examples of different city states. Okay, you had Thebes, Athens. Obviously, you have Sparta as well. These are the two most popular ones that you've probably heard of. Obviously, if you've seen the movie 300 or whatever, you know about Sparta as well. And those would be the two main ones that we'll talk about. We'll talk a little bit about Corinth and stuff like that. But we'll mainly focus on Athens and Sparta. So a city-state is when a city acts like its own country with its own government, laws, military customs, and culture. So it's almost like a country inside a country. Or just think of, the United States. Obviously, we are all, even though there are 50 different states, we're all underneath the federal government. You still have your state and local governments as well. But the city-states kind of take that to the next level here, where each state has their own military, they have their own law system, and again, culture, their own culture and different types of government. Okay, so like for example, you might see an oligarchy over in Sparta. You're going to see democracy develop over in Athens. So we kind of put that in perspective. Think about here in Iowa. Let's just say we had a democracy. You go over to the border of Illinois. They have an oligarchy. You go over to Wisconsin. They're a communist. Okay, so just think of all these different government type of styles developing in your surrounding area, even though you're underneath one country. So, despite their lack of unity due to the mountains that you see in the country of Greece, they do still share some cultural identities. They share the same language. We could take a look at the Greek alphabet here. My mouse is pointing to. You can see some similarities with the Greek alphabet. A, B. You got the E right here, H. Okay, so again, the Greek alphabet will influence the Latin alphabet, which will obviously influence our alphabet later on. Greek writing was influenced by the Phoenician alphabet, which we briefly talked about Phoenicians way earlier in the year, which again became the basis for the Latin alphabet. Now, if you have any, siblings in college, maybe your parents were part of a fraternity or a sorority, you got cousins, whatever. When you go to a bigger university, you'll see what they call Greek life, whether it be at, these are some sorority examples. You got Alpha, Data, Pi. Okay, so there's a bunch of these things you'll see all throughout college as well. But again, still showing the influence that ancient Greek or ancient Greece, I'm sorry, has on the United States here today. The last thing we're going to talk about today is because so I'll post this on Monday, and then Wednesday I'll have we'll kind of focus more on the Greek mythology, which is obviously a big, big part of ancient Greece because we're still familiar with a lot of their gods, goddesses, and heroes here today. So the early Greeks were polytheistic, okay, again, meaning they believe in multiple gods, multiple deities. They believed that their gods were immortal. However, they had human qualities, and this allowed them, or allowed the people, I should say, to be able to relate to them a little bit more. So obviously, the most famous ones we know, Zeus. I'm sure everybody knows Zeus. You have Poseidon, Hades, god of the underworld, Poseidon, god of the sea, Aphrodite, goddess of love, Apollo, god of sun and music. So we'll go more in depth with this Greek mythology here. I know a lot of you, whenever we do this unit, know some stuff about like the Percy Jackson. You've seen those movies or you've read the books. You kind of already have a great background knowledge of this, but I still kind of want to talk about how Greek mythology, I want to say maybe affects us today, but where we can see connections. Okay, and a lot of connections you're gonna be able to see are in business company names. Okay, like the example company of Nike. They got their company name from a Greek goddess. Okay, Nike was the winged goddess of victory, and that's where they got their company name from. So on Wednesday, I'll kind of post like this assignment you can do, where it's going to show you're going to try to connect Greek mythology to modern business companies or where we see them here in the United States today. So as always, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Again, I'm definitely willing to open up some dialogue here and kind of talk about some stuff. So again, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. And then again, keep your eye out on Monday and then for the rest of the week for the post and what you should be doing for the rest of the week.